let's talk about grip for a second. Usually there is three types of grip. All right, you have your traditional wrap around with your hand down at a 45-degree angle, and you're basically trying to squeeze in, but you can see your whatever this index finger is pushed up against here, and then of course you're locked in. All right, the other type of grip would be your traditional wrap around where your middle finger, sorry, not flicking you off, but your middle finger comes up. Of course, your hand's still down at a 40, 45, but this, whatever your index finger, wraps around the trigger guard. A lot of older people like this one because they can't apply torque, I guess, to the frame. Another one is called the wedge grip. Now, this is what the pros use. They either use a wedge grip or a modified grip. So, what the wedge grip is sort of like your traditional wraparound, except your middle finger comes up and then your index finger tries to squeeze in. So, your middle finger is literally locked onto the bottom of your trigger guard, and you are trying to squeeze this in, which brings your hand up. You want to try and get as high and forward as possible. I think this part of your hand right here is called the metacarpal or some shit like that. You want to get that up as high as possible. You want to try and get your thumb almost even with the slide if you can. Now, what I do is I do a modified wedge hold. So I do something a tiny bit different. I actually take my pinky and I slide it. I don't know if you can see that. I slide it up underneath here, which allows me to come up even higher on the gun. But also, if I were to take my hands off of the gun, my hands would be like this. I am torquing in and down is what I'm doing. It's basically that's what my hands would look like. The old school methodology is your firing hand, you want to grip it 40%, and your strong hand, you want to grip it 60%. That's fucking bullshit. Okay? Grip it with 100% and 100% with both hands and let off a little bit on your firing hand so you can have that dexterity in your finger to work the trigger. So, like I said, my grip's a little bit unorthodox. I slide my pinky up, which allows me to come up higher. My middle finger, I don't know if you can see that, is up against here. And my this finger technically I'm almost doing like a wrap around, but my finger comes up right here kind of on the trigger guard a little bit, but I am torquing in so much that the gun isn't moving. Now, when you're applying that torque, basically I'm trying to take my support thumb and move it into wherever the center of the barrel. I am trying to push my finger so hard into where the slide would be, but it's not. I'm pushing in, right here, but my hand is up super high and I am jamming my thumb into the frame. So I am torquing with my support hand. I'm torquing in and down, but also this technique with your sticking your pinky through this little hole right here, down there, it allows you to bring your hand up, and then when I'm torquing in, the gun doesn't move. Now, the issue you said you are having when you're just shooting regularly bang, 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 whatever, you're hitting the 10 ring when you're doing slow aimed fire. Well, the reason why you're not doing it whenever you start incorporating speed is your grip is breaking down. You might not think it is, but that is 100% what it is. Also, uh, trigger has a lot to do with it too, as well. I personally like the flat face triggers because it doesn't matter where you put your finger on here. Even if you have a fucked up grip and your trigger finger, you don't have as much thumb through, or not thumb through it, much of your finger in through it, you're just barely touching it, the trigger still comes straight back to the rear. Now, with your traditional curve trigger, sometimes if you do that, you'll bring the trigger back in an angle, which that'll allow the front to kind of drop down as you pull the trigger, which brings it down into the right. For on this end, on the target, be down to the left. But the grip is 90% why you're doing it. You just need to figure out a way to get the best grip possible for you and to lock it in. Now, grip strength has a little bit to do with it, but not really. It's mainly all elbows and shoulders, to be honest. I mean, I could grip this as 100% and 100%, but if I'm not using my shoulders and my elbows, everything, this gun's still gonna flop around. They call this noodling, or I believe. So that's when you're locked in. I mean, you have everything gripped, but the gun can still move around. That just means you are not locked in enough. I mean, you kind of need to use most of your body to be able to lock in and have the gun not move. But ultimately, it would be up to you to figure out what grip works best, because if you're noodling all around, that just means you're not locked in enough. The traditional old school wraparound for older people sometimes isn't enough. Sometimes that wedge hold where you move your middle finger up and you try and squeeze your index finger and allows your hand to come up more on this side. Now, I don't necessarily know what type of gun you're using. Usually with metal frame, heavier frame guns, you still need to torque in, but you can loosen up your grip a tiny, tiny bit. This is a SIG X5 Legion, so it's actually striker fired, but it's about a 43 ounce gun. I still grip this sucker pretty hard because this is my competition gun, but I also, I don't know if you can see it, I have silicone carbide grips on here. I put these on here myself. It's essentially like ridiculously rough skateboard tape. I mean, I'm a technician, so I naturally have pretty rough hands. But this allows my hand not to move. So when I am torquing down and gripping on this, whether my hands are sweaty, like yesterday in the competition, it was humid as fuck out. So having this silicone carbide grip allowed me to stay on it and my hands not move. Because probably what's happening is your grip's breaking down, whether that's from not having enough texture on your grip or just not using the proper mechanics to do so. But other than that, I mean, I could probably show you more whenever we meet up, but I'm very certain your grip is what's actually breaking down here. And of course, trigger control too as well might have a little bit to do with it. But when you shoot slow aimed fire, well, actually, before I do that, like I can't shoot slow aimed fire. I'm not gonna lie. Like all of my shots are not super super fast, but whenever I shoot slow aim fire, I suck. You know, because my grip and everything like that, I can crank off rounds almost as fast as I can pull the trigger and keep them all inside of a 6-inch plate just by gripping it and going. Also, of course, your back strap, whatever you want to call it, you want to get this up, I mean, as high as possible. So let's see if you can see it. So like your normal traditional grip would be just like that, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's like my skin isn't pushing up back here. When I grip it, I come up with it, and you can see how the skin now is displaced there. So I am, hold on, let me see if I can do it. I am rotating my support hand, or not my support hand, my firing hand up on the pistol like that. So I'm coming up into it. And obviously this thumb's staying out of the way to accept it. So when my hand comes in, I actually, instead of doing your traditional like this, where you're actually, how can I show this to you, like this with your this thumb here, I actually rotate it off to the side, and I'm actually pressing down pretty hard. I'm not white knuckling it or anything like that. I am pushing down on it just to apply a little bit more pressure to it. But other than that, I'll send you a couple videos that I used back in the day that really helped me with my grip.